Another day, another argument over what is holding back gaming now. This time it was sparked by Lords of the Fallen performance stats. Oftentimes, the Series S is blamed, and there can be arguments made for and against that, which we're not going to get into here. What we're going to get into here today is actually look at what is really holding back the market. And it's not the Series S, it's actually PCs. Now, before I'm killed for saying PCs are holding back gaming, because trust me, that is going to be a very unpopular opinion to hear, I'm not talking about the super rigs. I'm not talking about the 3000, 4000 series. I'm not talking about 64 gigs of RAM. I'm not talking about Minecraft shaders on Ultra HD texture packs with water physics. No. Not talking about those PCs. I'm not talking about the $1,000, $2,000 PCs. I'm talking about the average, because the average is what most publishers are going to target because they want to make the most amount of money, which means they have to target the largest amount of customers while delivering a quality product, which means some of the lower end PCs are going to get cut off for some games because it's just nonsensical to target the very lowest of the low. The high average is not that high, and we know this because Steam hardware stats are available. We can actually see that from the hardware survey, rather. What we learn is 8 gigs of VRAM or less, which is compensated for by, system RAM. But since the consoles don't really have regular RAM, we're just going to count the VRAM is 78.9% of the market. So 78.9% of the market do not have more than 8 gigs of VRAM. Now, graphic cards, the Series S runs a 1650 Super. The most common card used is the 1650 on PC. Now, you'll see some outliers on these stats. There's the 3060, the 2060. Those have some high performance users per month, but you'll see the average tends to be the 1650, the 1060 rather, the 1015 Ti. So a lot of people are still using very old graphic cards. Now, yes, the 3060s are really rocking it in March at 10.67%, but we see in July the 1650 has retaken the dominant position. So when publishers go to make their game, they're going to be targeting the average PC user. And if the average PC user is running older graphic cards, they're going to want to target that. So over time, the PC market is growing. It's getting more powerful. We can see that in the stats. As months go on, as years go on, more advanced hardware is being adopted, but that takes time. But if you want to set aside that, there's an even greater thing holding back gaming, and that is the developers themselves. Now, I'm not talking about all developers. Again, I have to clarify this. But a lot of developers do not optimize the game engine. Now, see, optimizing the game engine is what makes your game run efficiently. And a lot of publishers do not see value in optimizing the game engine. Now, indie developers, they will oftentimes optimize their engine, which is how Factorial went from being, a decent multiplayer game to a straight-up MMO when it was optimized. Like, it literally had hundreds of players on a single server. Like, that's how efficient the netcode got for the game. Publishers oftentimes don't see a value in that. If they have 16 gigs of RAM, if they have 8 gigs of RAM, they're just going to throw 8 gigs of RAM at the problem and basically try to make it work for that. That's why games on the last generation, we have games, in this generation doing basically the same stuff, maybe just a bit better lighting engine, a bit more objects in the environment, but fundamentally we're not really seeing a huge jump from late last gen into this gen. But at the same time, they're using more processing power. There's no real cause for this. They just have it available, so they're just going to throw it at their product. And we've seen this oftentimes with the argument the PlayStation is better. Is because the SSD has a faster write speed, and you can take great advantage of that for loading textures. And some developers do. And then when they want to go to PC, they have to use other techniques to achieve the same goal. At the end of the day, what holdbacks gaming is a complex combination of companies that don't want to spend money on optimization and the average user. What is the most common market they can reach? So while the Series S is on the market, and if there's a certain percentage of people who are using it, and that percentage is in line with PC, that is still going to be targeted as the norm for development. Now, my personal opinion is next generation, Xbox should not have a Series S. The next generation is coming in 28. That's 5 years off. Now, right now, the Series S is holding up. But near the end of the console generation, I don't think 1650 is going to be the average anymore for graphic cards. Now, RAM, that might remain stable, but graphic cards, you're probably going to see it lean more to the higher end graphic cards in 3 to 4 years. So the Series S then will become a problem. But until then, it's not that much of a problem. It's not really holding back gaming. It's going to suck for Xbox. That's going to become a problem for Xbox. Whereas the PlayStation, the PlayStation's releasing a new model, the PlayStation, there's a Slim coming out, and they're going to do a mid-generation reboot, which is complete folly. Because you look at the stats right here. Look at the stats I've shown you. That's the average. No one's really going to take advantage of that extra processing power mid-generation. No one needs to. Graphics are basically capping out at 4K. 8K TVs aren't catching on. So we don't need more processing power for 4K. It's basically become the standard 4K is where it looks like we're going to sit for probably, well, I don't want to, say like for sure, but probably going to look at a decade, 2 decades. If we have a major financial crisis, we might look at 4K as the high end, and the standard for the next half a century. So PlayStation is really just wasting money on a mid-gen refresh. I think they really should just hold off and focus on the Slim. That's a good idea. I'm not going to crap on the Slim because the Slim is what the Series S should be. It's going to be a disc-less system that is as powerful as the PS5. That is what Microsoft should have targeted rather than what they put out because of the length of the console cycle. Now, at the time the Series S came out, it was decently powered and it really matched the common PC. It probably was a bit more higher end than the PC at the time, and the PC average at the time, rather. So now you know what's really going on. That's all I really got to say on that. Peace out, everybody.